ladies and gentlemen, Ariel Mitchell, attorney, being sued by Diddy for $50 million, is trying to get the lawsuit dismissed. Ladies and gentlemen, when it looked like things were downhill, people started to jump on the wagon going down. I got the book. I did the interview with the guy promoting the book right after Diddy was locked up. Y'all want to hear this? Because even 50 Cent chimed in. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like the cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up button, ladies and gentlemen. Subscribe to the channel. I got some real good exclusive stuff for you today. So, attorney Ariel Mitchell, and I told you guys about this a while back, along with Courtney Burgess. When Diddy first got locked up, right, there was a book that was released, if you will, right? It was this book right here. It's no longer on Amazon, ladies and gentlemen. It's no longer on Amazon. That book right there. Now, I want you to understand something. I understand that people want to talk about things, but they don't want to give you the truth and the facts of the matter. It's like this revisionist thing that they do now that Diddy is only possibly might go to jail for the transportation, prostitution across state lines, right? From that perspective. Listen, Diddy sues NewsNation, Burgess and Ariel Mitchell, $50 million defamation lawsuit over alleged sex tape claims, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it was actually about. It was about sex tape claims, right? And I want to show you this before we get even further. Now, I want you to show 50 Cent even chimed in on this and actually posted the interview that I did on the Art of Dialogue. You got to check this out. Like I said, and I want you to check it out. Look, watch this. This is what 50 Cent said about the interview. Look. 50 posted this on his Instagram. Author of Kim Porter book says Kim had tapes of Diddy having relations with Jay-Z, Will Smith, and others. And you see down at the bottom what 50 said. Y'all know I don't fuck with Diddy, but I don't believe a word out of this fool's mouth, ladies and gentlemen. I did the interview, and I'm going to tell you once again, it was false. I need you to understand that. I need you to understand what I'm about to give to you right now, ladies and gentlemen. You have to understand that. Check this out.
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.
ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to show you and the information that I'm about to give you is so profound that you're going to understand and see when it looked like things were and how they were pushing it in the media. But the fact of the matter is, not only was Jay-Z defamed, not only was Diddy defamed, not only was Will Smith defamed, right? By alleging someone had tapes with someone, Diddy having a sexual relations with Will Smith, Jay-Z, and all of these other things, ladies and gentlemen, it was all lies. It wasn't true. I'm gonna show you something. Check this out. Let's go. And like I say, follow along with this information because it's very, very important that you do, right? So Diddy filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit over alleged sex tape claims. Now, you have to understand what it's over, right? Now, like I said, this is not in favor of Diddy or against Diddy. This is just the facts and what actually happened, ladies and gentlemen. Check it out. So like I said, it's a major move in a legal war that's been building for months, right? Diddy filed this a couple of months ago for the people who didn't hear about it. But I'm going to, put you up on some of this straight game, right? Diddy is fighting back, right? Once again, it's one thing to have, the freak off tapes and the things that, he was involved with Cassie Jane or whoever else, chose to be in his life. Like I said, who he considered girlfriends taking care of him, still spending $10,000 a month while Daphne Joy Jane, was actually testifying against the man in court. Like I said, everybody in those situations were grown, if you will, right? Despite what everybody was saying, we heard the evidence. The jury found that he was not guilty on the serious charges. But check it out. So Diddy filed a $50 million a federal defamation lawsuit against NewsNation, Nexstar Media, a self-proclaimed source. Listen, the self-proclaimed source, Courtney Burgess, and his attorney, Ariel Mitchell. Diddy says enough is enough, and he's ready to take this all the way to court. So let me break it down for you, ladies and gentlemen. You got to understand this. Check it out. So here's the background. This is what happened. Diddy's lawsuit filed in New York federal court accuses defendants of spreading false and outrageous claims, including that there are sex tapes of Diddy engaging in assaults on celebrities and minors, ladies and gentlemen. That there are sex tapes of Diddy engaging in assaults on celebrities and minors is what they were saying. This is a fact. This was on NewsNation and, wherever people they would listen to, whoever was, wanting to have them on their program, but NewsNation they're talking about specifically, right? Listen, the documents obtained, right, by many news outlets, right, says this media circus has been fueled by lies and baseless speculations, and Diddy says it's time to stop. Basically, he filed a lawsuit. So you got to understand that. Listen, this is what Diddy's legal team basically stated, right? In this pitiful spectacle, all pretense of objectivity has been abandoned, right? People are not thinking objective at all. It was just one way, and they was coming up with story after story after story. Listen, as a global audience feasts at the all-you-can-eat buffet of wild lies and conspiracy theories, ladies and gentlemen. That's what Diddy's legal team said in the filing of this lawsuit. Once again, he said, in this pitiful spectacle, all pretense and objectivity has been abandoned as a global audience feasts at the all-you-can-eat buffet of wild lies and conspiracy theories. This is what was going on. I understand controversy, and conspiracy theories, generate a lot of speculation and attention in certain matters. But check this out. And they are calling out Burgess and Mitchell directly. Diddy calling out Courtney Burgess and Ariel Mitchell directly in dealing with this situation. You got to understand what was done. The defendant, basically who's who, right? Let's talk about the key players. Courtney Burgess, the man at the center of the claim, he's been cited by the media as a source claiming to have damning evidence. These tapes in which this book was based on, alleging that Kim Porter had left some kind of documents and hard drives and all of this, that, and the other, and people ate it up. This book right here at one time was the #1 seller on Amazon, ladies and gentlemen. I need you to understand that, right? So I do the interview with the guy, Chris Todd, which is not his real name. He contacted the Art of Dialogue, right? And so, like I said, we talked, and I decided to do the interview. I talked to the guy. I'm like, okay, I'll do the interview. And so I interviewed the guy. And the thing that got me the most was the lies that he told about Tupac, right? He said that Diddy sent Faith to go get with Tupac after Tupac was freed from prison. Like I said, I was at the Hollywood Athletic Club with Tupac on the night that he met Faith, right? I was there talking to Tupac, kicking it. Tretch was there. O.J. Simpson's daughter, Arnell Simpson, was there. And like I said, it was a wonderful night because, like I said, Tupac, he just getting out of jail, from that perspective. And it was October 18th, 1995, ladies and gentlemen. October 18th, 1995. I'll never forget it. And so when I looked at the book, I was like, wow. I'm like, what? It was, I'm like, all of this is lies. It's not true. Right. And so Kim Porter was supposed to be in the office while this conversation that she was alleged to have around Diddy and Faith. And Diddy was supposed to tell Faith allegedly, yeah, that's why I sent you at Tupac. And Kim heard and was like, oh, you sent her at Tupac? And then it was alleged that Kim Porter allegedly had a relationship with Tupac, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, the Will Smith, the Jay-Z, the all of these other things that they were saying. So the who's who of the defendants. So when I did you got to go check out the interview over on the Art of Dialogue. You got to go check it out. I mean, because at the end of the interview, the guy, Chris Todd, got mad. He got mad because, he told me, he said, once you figured out that you knew Tupac, right? He was like, he told me this off camera. He was like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Because he knew his feet was on the fire and he had to come clean. But he tried to hold it up as best he could and was basically saying, I don't know what Kim is writing right here. I don't know what she means by this. And so once again, ladies and gentlemen, this was not anything from Kim Porter. It was not. I mean, you can blame it on, and make Kim rest in peace. I never met Kim before, but like I said, once again, you got to understand this now. Right? The defendant. So who's? Courtney Burgess, the man at the center of the claims. He's been cited by media as a source claiming to have damning evidence at that particular time, right? Ariel Mitchell, Burgess' attorney, she's now accused of amplifying those claims, knowing they were false. This is what's being alleged in Diddy's lawsuit. Ariel Mitchell is being accused of amplifying the claims, knowing they were false. Or at very least, not doing her due diligence. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, Tony Busby sued Diddy and Jay-Z, right? Remember, this came after the book also. Remember, the book, right, is alleging, as you've seen, and I'm going to show it to you again. This is the thing that you got to understand about this. I'm going to show it to you again. Look, what did 50 post on his Instagram? Right? Author of Kim Porter's book says Kim had tapes of Diddy having relations with Jay-Z, Will Smith, and others, right? You see that, right? So now, when you understand what was going on at that particular time, they were claiming to have these tapes, if you will, right? Courtney Burgess, Ariel Mitchell, representing him as his attorney, but they're accusing Ariel Mitchell of she's accused of amplifying the claims, knowing that they were false, or at least at the very least, her not doing her due diligence. And this is why and Nexstar NewsNation, the media outlet that allegedly broadcast and promoted lies without verification. It was, like I said, it was an all gung-ho against Diddy. I understand the frenzy that was going on, but once again, one has to be mindful of what a person is saying, and definitely, hold on, you know what? Y'all got tapes, so let me see something before we go, and go and air this. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to be held responsible for saying something that against somebody, and it's not true. Listen, according to the complaint, these three are the worst perpetrators in a coordinated attack to defame and destroy Diddy's public image. Now, after we went through the trial, we understand that there was a lot of going on, and it's going to be really hard for Diddy to kind of get people to see him as they once saw him based on that. But that's his personal life. That's his business. That is what that is. And he has to deal with that, right? But this lawsuit is very, very telling. So Diddy's legal strategy, his legal strategy in trying to fight back. Diddy's lawyer, Erica Wolf, said this suit is about setting a precedent. Setting a precedent. She said, these defendants have willfully fabricated and disseminated outrageous lies with reckless disregard for the truth. This complaint should serve as a warning, right? I don't think that they're trying to scare anybody. You got to understand what actually happened. And I'm going to get to that when you understand how the feds got involved and what happened, right? Listen, the claim is that this media campaign has poisoned the public perception and tainted potential jurors. At that particular time, there were lawsuits flying from everywhere, right? But this right here was simply not true, and there had not been any verification. Like I said, when I did the interview with the guy, Chris Todd, I asked him, I was like, is there a way I can see what you got? He was like, no, I can't show you, because if these tapes come out, it's going to shut down the music industry. It's going to disrupt the whole entertainment industry is going to shut down. You know what I mean? He was trying to make it appear as if he had something that was just so explosive that he really didn't have. And we're going to get to that and showing you that he really didn't have it. This is crazy, man. It's like, wow, people will say anything. That's what it showed me. You know what I mean? Like I said, once again, listen, right? The claim is that the media campaign had poisoned public perception and tainted potential jurors, making it harder for Diddy to get a fair trial in any future litigation. Remember, they were alleging that kids as young as, I think, 8, 9, 13, something like that, but kids were on these hard drives that they said that they were in possession of, right? That Courtney Burgess was in possession of, and Chris Todd basically said that he had saw and he was in possession of in this book, right? In relation to the book. They also allege that Ariel Mitchell, listen, and she said it. She said she had said it on NewsNation. She said, I haven't seen it. They're also alleging that Ariel Mitchell never saw any tapes and yet continued to say her client had them, a reckless and damaging move. This is true. I watched the interview. I was like, oh, wow. Right? After I did the interview on the Art of Dialogue, you got to check it out. Like I said, once again. So the defense's response, Ariel Mitchell's team, they came back, as they rightfully should. Mitchell's legal team, however, is firing back. Her attorney, Stephen A. Metcalf, II, filed a motion to dismiss. All right. He says Mitchell never made defamatory comments on air. She was simply doing her job as an attorney. And here's the twist. The government seizure of flash drives from Burgess supports her belief that the materials existed. Ladies and gentlemen, there were no flash drives. There were no flash drives of Will Smith. There were no flash drives of Jay-Z. There were no flash drives of Diddy with no kids. There were none of those. What we saw was what we saw when Cassie put out her lawsuit, right? Cassie stated there was freak offs. Everybody ran with it, right? So much so they was like, oh, they was thinking like this party. And then in Little Rod's lawsuit, right? He alleged that Diddy told him about having sex tapes of NBA players, politicians, music executives, and things like that. But he had never seen these tapes. It was just alleged in Little Rod's civil case, right? Which a lot of those claims got thrown out. In Little Rod's civil case, Lucian Grange, from the CEO of Universal, that got thrown out. Christina Karam's Diddy personal assistant, that got thrown out. And Tyrone Blackburn actually apologized to the judge because he had went too far in naming all of these people and claiming, all of these other things that really didn't have anything. It's like throwing shit up against the wall to see if it sticks, if you will, right? A bunch of baseless claims. Let's put it that way, right? But so when Ariel Mitchell, her team is firing back, she said they're saying Mitchell never made defamatory comments on air, right? She was simply doing her job as an attorney. And the twist is the government seizure of flash drives from Burgess supports her belief that the materials existed, right? Once again, as an attorney, doing your due diligence, being able to see the evidence, right? And then get on television and to claim that that like what they're saying as far as what Diddy's attorney, that it existed, right, without actually seeing it is kind of reckless, if you will. It's very reckless, right? And so they had the book out. The book was selling, #1 selling book on Amazon and the whole 9 yards, right? Listen, Metcalf, Ariel Mitchell's attorney, argues this shows she didn't act with malice and her role should be protected under the attorney immunity laws, right? This sets up a legal showdown, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a legal showdown on this one, right? You got to understand. So now, but they have, like I said, they have these tapes from NewsNation, the actual interview, and like I say, all of those things are going to play out. So what's really at stake here, right? Diddy is demanding $50 million in damages. He's trying to regain control of the public narrative, and he's firing a shot across the bow to media outlets that think that they can profit from unverified sensational content, right? The bigger story, ladies and gentlemen, the bigger story. This lawsuit could reshape how media covers accusations, especially when the lines between gossip, law, and journalism keep getting blurrier. That's the problem. You know what I mean? That's the bigger picture. Like I said, it was all lies, ladies and gentlemen. There were no hard drives, right? And so much so that Courtney Burgess was subpoenaed in front of the grand jury that was basically dealing with Diddy and Diddy's case. Nothing. Zero. No hard drives, no videos, no children, no Will Smith, no Jay-Z, no none of that. The only stuff that they had got from Cassie. Those freak off tapes that was shown in court, they got that from Cassie, and that was between Cassie, Diddy, and the male prostitutes, sex workers, or escorts, or whatever you want to call them. You see what I'm saying? So I need you to understand, if Diddy wins, this could be a major victory for celebrities dealing with viral defamation. If he loses, it may embolden others to continue spreading unverified accusations. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, what do you guys think? I need you to drop your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe for more exclusive coverage, ladies and gentlemen. You ain't gonna get it nowhere else. I'm gonna come and tell you this straight up. This is what's going on. Like I said, whether Ariel Mitchell and them win, lose, or whatever, these are the facts. This is as it exists. Why Diddy is suing, and this is Ariel Mitchell and her attorney's defense and trying to defend themselves against the lawsuit. Like I said, once again, the crazy part about this whole situation is when it first came off, like I said, listen, when it first came off, right? Diddy's lawsuit filed against, in New York at the time, accused the defendants of spreading false and outrageous claims. including that there are sex tapes of Diddy engaging in assaults on celebrities and minors. Now, one has to remember what they were actually saying, because you can best believe, Diddy feel like probably like, you know what? They just held my feet to the fire. I'm holding everybody else's feet to the fire. You know what I mean? And like I said, you have to go and watch the interview that I did with the guy, Chris Todd, over on the Art of Dialogue, ladies and gentlemen. You have to go watch it and just watch how he began to squirm as I began to ask them poignant questions that he couldn't really answer. You know what I mean? I was like, wow. I'm like, and then how he made this claim about these hard drives that he had and he saw and all of these things. But when it came time to put up, it was nothing. So much so that Amazon yanked this book off the shelves or off their site, because they were basically filing cease and desist claims in regards to that. You see what I'm saying? So like I said, ladies and gentlemen, tell me what you think, in the comments, and once again, you had Tisa Tells, just recently, once again, she had talked about the whole slant. Once again, the misinformation, they're not giving you the both sides of the argument and what it is. Like I said, I'm not for Diddy. I'm not against Diddy. This is what's actually going on. These are actually the facts. This is why the lawsuit was filed, and this is what Ariel Mitchell had came back with her attorney. It's just as simple as that. It's not against Ariel Mitchell, not for her, not against Diddy, not for him. These are just simply the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, more importantly. So chime in. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Like I said, once again, your boy Del Rey, straight gang.
Life is like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.